It's been over 2 years since I started speedrunning, and the transition from Captain Toad Treasure Tracker to Shin Megami Tensei 5 is not as obvious looking from the outside. I found my niche in speedrunning SMT games, and today I decided to review all the games I've run and compile them into a tier list as a way to look back on the past. So first of all, I'm going to start by organizing all of the games that I haven't speedrun yet. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of SMT games, so let's get on with that. First of all, haven't done Last Bible, in fact no one has. Haven't done Red Book GBA, DDS1, DDS2, White Book, Dark Book, Black Book GBC, MT1, Devil Survivor 2, Devil Survivor 1, P3 Fez, Jack Rose, KMT1, MT2, Nocturne, P1, P1, P2, P2, P3, more P3, Arena, Ultimax, Dancing, P4 Dancing, P4 Golden, P4, P5, P5 Royal, P5 Strikers, Persona Q2, Persona Q, Raido 2, or is that the first one? Oh, there's one missing. The Soul Hackers, Strange Journey Redux, Apocalypse, SMT4, Strange Journey, Synchronicity Prologue, and both versions of Tokyo Mirage Sessions. So, as you can see, there's a lot more games that I haven't speedrun, and that I'm still waiting to, but it's, how do I say this? Letting these games takes a while. A lot of them haven't been routed. There's just not enough time. But I will get on to do at least one version of each game. I shouldn't really say this, but one version of each game one day, eventually. That is my goal, and I'll try to see it through. So this right here is the list of all the games that I've speedrun. And I guess we might start off with the first SMT game that I've speedrun, which was SMT1 SFC. Now, this game has a lot of good to it. It's changed a lot since I first tried it. The original route was pretty rough. I'll put it here just for now. The original route had a lot of RNG. We had to get 6 demons in the beginning section. I think it was around the same demons. There were, some of them were different. We got Jack Frost, which we don't do anymore. But we had to get 6 demons, and then we also had to get a Temple Knight post Apocalypse, so that we could fuse a Sylph to fuse the Hinokagutsuchi. The problem is that to fuse a Sylph, we gotta go through random fusions, which is when you fuse a demon with a human, which then have a chance of resulting into a random demon out of a 16 or so demon pool. So we had to keep trying until we got Sylph, and it was awful. It lost a lot of time, it was inconsistent, it was very painful. So since then, we've changed routes. It's gotten a lot faster. The average is now around maybe 20 minutes faster than it used to be, maybe even more, because not only was the whole complication with the fusion of Sylph, there was also a lot more RNG because we relied on having to use instant kill spells to defeat the Devas, and it was just it was a mess. I'm surprised we stuck with it for so long because it was a mess. But then Mizusima came through and made an incredible route, which is so much more consistent. We even skipped one of the dungeons using this oversight into how Trieste is programmed, and now the route is very fun. It's very addictive. It's quite difficult. Every single boss fight is a hurdle, including the very first one, Doman. But I feel like it's one of the most rewarding speedruns of all, because you have to really master all of the backup strats. You have to know a lot about the game to go fast, and it also has movement tech, because the way you mash up influences the speed in which you move. There's like a specific time to move fast. So I feel like it's very, very hard to organize. I might change this, but for now I'm going to put it in very fun. Very first one. I feel like order will also be important, so very first one of very fun. Here it is, SMT1 SFC. Now, counterpart SMT1 GBA. I also speedran this. I didn't run it for as long because I immediately remembered why we moved on from the old route. So the GBA version of this game still uses the old route for the most part. I feel like the only big difference from the old route is that Stoma works differently in this version of the game, so we have to use smoke bombs in the last dungeon. But we move a lot faster, we have strafing, so the game in general is faster than the old route in the SFC version was. But after having done SMT1 SFC for so long with the new route, going back to the old one in this version was jarring. It was horrifying. Having to do Arachne on GBA the old way, and the fights go so fast because you can just set auto and auto. You know, you can like set your actions, set auto to repeat the past actions that you chose in the previous turn, and then just auto. The fights end so fast. Either you die or you survive, but they go so fast, which you think is good, but it's horrible when you're 1 hour into the run is going very well, and then you die in 2 seconds to Arachne, or in 2 seconds to Ladon. So it's a good run, it has potential. I would say it's fun because it's still SMT1 as a speedrun, but that old route really brings it down. So I'm going to put it in fun for now, but I would not be surprised if later I will downgrade it to okay. For now it's fun. So the second game I speedran was Last Survival 1. It was actually not this version, it was the GB version, which is only slightly different, so I'm going to only rate one of them. If I had to distinguish both, I'd say that the GB version is slightly worse, but let's just count the GBC version because Game Boy Color version of Last Survival 1 is an incredible speedrun. It is perhaps one of the best Megaten speedruns I have ever done. It is incredibly fast-paced. Demon recruitment is very quick because it's based on race and it has like a set dialogue tree, so you can just memorize it and you're good. Get enough demons for each of the areas and that's it. You don't have to do fusions, you don't have to really worry about it at all because the game is also simple and easy enough that you don't struggle too much without many demons. They're mostly only there to serve as demon shields. So you just keep going, you move very fast. It's also a GB game, so the world is slightly smaller. It's a top-down adventure RPG. So you move through the overall map very fast. And the experience of going through battles, running away almost 100% guaranteed because we put all our points into speed, and speed really does not fail. After you have more than 20 speed, you will run away from everything. No worries about your run dying to missed escape. Getting demons extremely quickly and then going to a fight, and then most of the time just autoing and seeing it all play out, only having to stop sometimes to heal up and make sure you don't die. It's almost like playing Team Fortress, where you get all the pieces, you put them in the correct position, you just watch it all play out, and if you survive you get to the next area. It has some very difficult boss fights, namely Minotaur at the top of the tower and the last boss fights. They're all incredibly challenging, which is, most of the times when you have such difficult fights, I'd say that brings down the experience of the speedrun, but because it's one of the shorter speedruns, it ends up not being terrible. I'm saying this because it's been a while since I've speedrun it, I think, because I remember I was going insane while I was grinding for my current PB, but I feel like it has one of the best spacings in all the games that I've run. The story is simple, so it doesn't get crowded with dialogue. I think that everything that makes the route for Last Survival 1 is perfect. It's smartly executed. Getting the necessary demons for the first fight, getting the necessary demons for the second fight, moving on, grinding for a very small amount of time, which will then be enough for the rest of the game basically. Getting the enough demons for Minotaur, dying perhaps. I died many times, hopefully not dying. Moving on, and we don't even get any more demons, and we only get the guaranteed given demons, which are strong enough to carry you throughout the rest of the game until you get the bone/skeleton demons, the relic ones, which end up being very strong. We get the secret spells from heaven. That's basically heaven, the place where we go to, right? It's called Terror or something, but it's heaven, because we get them from Michael. and we have enough to defeat the last boss fight. What makes the game so simple and many times not as appreciated by the community is what makes it such a fast-paced, well-structured speedrun. And to me, one of the most satisfying to execute. It's a bit reminiscent of Pokemon games, but you don't really have to worry about random encounters because you just escape from all of them so fast, and then all of the fights are fun. The game is fun to play, but it's more than fun. It makes you feel so satisfied by the end of it, if you're lucky enough to finish a run. Because the one thing that brings it down is really the last boss fight. My god, you would think it wasn't that bad, and most people who've played and beaten this game will probably be very confused, but in the speedrun we finished the game at around level 29-30. By that point our health is very low and we're relying on our 3 demons who have very strong spells, and so do we. Admittedly, so do we. We do a lot of damage. We're relying on those 3 demons to serve as human shields, but to not die to Lucifer because they also deal a lot of damage. Lucifer has around 8,000 HP, which is double the GB version. It's one of the only good things about it. So we need him to hit our demons and not hit us so we don't die. Also, if the demons die in the middle of the battle in these games, you can revive them. So if they're dead forever and no more human shield for you. So he needs to hit the demons without critting and killing them consequently, so you can heal them and then keep doing more damage. And also we need him to not kill any of the humans, which can be revived mid-battle if I remember correctly, but we need them alive so they can keep using items that recover the MP of the protagonist and the other demons that are dealing damage. But the biggest problem of this all isn't even the crits, which are often, it's not even the damage, it's the spell called Holy. Now, Holy comes in many faces. You have Holy 2, which is a spell that requires 2 turns to charge up, and you have Holy 4, which requires 4 turns to charge up, and Lucifer can use both. But what you really need to be afraid of is Holy 4, because if you get Holy 4, you will die. There is no way to survive it. He will wipe your entire party, and your run is done right there and then. And he likes using that spell. So if you start saying Holy, you get scared, because you can see it build up. If you get to the 3rd turn, you just gotta hope there's a 4th turn, and you kill him quicker than he kills you, basically. That's it. So the satisfaction of being able to kill Lucifer before he can cast Holy 4 is great. In the fights before Lucifer, Baal and Belial, they're also cool. Baal, especially if I recall correctly, which is the one that's right before Lucifer, can also be pretty challenging. But it's really, Lucifer is the big one. I can't praise this speedrun enough. It's so satisfying. So, it's fun. Yeah, it's very fun. It's enlightening. I will put Last Bible 1 in number 1 for now. Last Bible 1 was a game that I decided to speedrun for the lols. I thought this was a game that nobody's touching like 2 years. It's a big meme, you know, haha, Last Bible. It's the one spin-off that's basically like Dragon Quest. It's basically like Final Fantasy. It's nothing like normal Megaten, so it's gotta be just a silly joke, right? And then before I realized, I'd fallen in love with the Last Bible spin-offs. I'd fallen in love with Megaten even more. It's really opened my eyes to how fun and frustrating speedrunning can be, and how good it feels to be very invested into a run. Which I've also felt with SMT1. In fact, I'd say this, aside from Last Bible 1, there's really not been a game that I felt as invested into as SMT1. Except maybe for SMT2. SMT2 is my favorite Megaten game of all time. If there's a game that I'm entirely biased on and can't take any criticism, you know, aside from the obvious, which like the game was released in an incomplete state, which it's not even a criticism, that's a fact. It's SMT2. It's just a very charming game for me. I can't just describe everything I like about the game in the speedrun tier list, because that's besides the point. Before the speedrun, while I was making the notes and learning the run, I could already feel that I was going to hate it, because making the notes for the speedrun was a horrible experience. There was a lot going on. There's a lot of dungeons. You gotta go back and forth and here and there, and it was very confusing, and I was trying to add maps into my notes so I wouldn't get lost, and making those maps was horrible. So going into, I had zero expectations. And so I started speedrunning it, and I did around 1 or 2 runs, and I soon realized that the recruitment section was 1,000 times worse than in SMT1. I expected it to be similar, maybe a little worse because there's more demons, and then I realized it's not a little worse, it's 1,000 times worse. It was bad. I can say SMT2 without manip is only okay. You know, like everything after you're done with the recruitments is fun, but everything before is horrible. So without manips, SMT2 is not that fun to speedrun. But there is manips, and manips can get you through the horrible recruitment section, which takes around half an hour. In fact, it can take less, it's like 25 minutes. So you do the manip perfectly for the first 25 minutes, which isn't hard at all. 25 minutes of manips is very doable, and after that you're set. There's a lot of tough RNG fights. You know, you're gonna struggle a little with hitting the first frame for the manip, but after that it's very fun. And because SMT2 is so satisfying, it has a world that's so satisfying to traverse, it feels very good to traverse it in a speedrun setting. However, as I speedrun it more and more, I realized that these hurdles were becoming very frustrating. That is, the boss fights. And so I decided, why don't I just manip the frustrating boss fights away? So first of all, it was Basilisk. Basilisk is a fight that has a chance of popping up and fighting you, but also has a chance of instead poisoning you or just running away. You need it to pop up and fight you at the first time you encounter it. That's the ideal. And you can make the ideal happen by manipping. And so I started by manipping Basilisk. And then I thought, I've manipped Basilisk anyways, I might as well manip the recruitments at the factory so they're consistent, which is Qsif and a DemiKids or this other one. So I manipped those. And then Zane, which is perhaps the worst boss fight in this game because it can kill you, and there's a bunch of boss fights beforehand that can also kill you. And there's these really tough encounters on the way and back from Zane, so I thought I might as well manip up to Zane. And before I realized, there was 1 hour of manip, and 1 hour of manip is pretty tough to execute, I won't lie. There's a lot of dungeons we traverse, there's a lot of world we traverse. It's tough. And it's a little boring, I'm not gonna lie. Not only is it frustrating to have to hit the frame every time, you're then having to execute everything perfectly for that first hour. But then, after the first hour, the game is incredible. You know, they still have some chance of dying to random encounters, which makes it very frustrating. But then going for the underground and getting past the underground, doing the factory tower, and then collecting the pillars, doing each of the dungeons in the underground is also okay. And then going for Makai is great, and it's great. And it feels very satisfying to finish a run. So, SMT2, I would say, okay without manips, fun, you know, above SMT1 GBA, with, if you still consider only the first recruitment manip. In fact, if I'm being honest, it's probably only fun above SMT1 GBA because of all the frustrating things in the middle. This is perhaps my most honest judgment of SMT2 glitchless SFC version. Of course, there's also the glitch category, which I've never done and don't intend to do. However, it's SMT2, and SMT2 is my favorite game, so it automatically enlightening, because the more I can play SMT2, the better it is, and it only gets better. I can't stop thinking about that game. It's incredible. Maybe I'll remanip it one day and make it better. I can't let go of it. I can't put it down. I love it so much, so it's enlightening. Below Lost Bible, because Lost Bible is Lost Bible 1, and it has all the good that I just described, but it's still SMT2, so it deserves to be enlightening. So let's move on. SMT-If was a game I expected to like more than I ended up doing, and I think the fault was at the manips. SMT-If has an incredibly hard manip to both maintain and to hit. It has an incredibly hard frame to hit on console, has an incredibly hard manip to execute because of some random elements in the middle. But if you can execute the manip, which is definitely worth it, and then you get past sloth, it becomes very fun. Unfortunately, that's like the first 50 minutes of the run. But the manip is fun to execute. It's just really hard. It's like it has the fault of SMT2 with having a frame to hit, but it takes 2 minutes for you to confirm if you've even hit it. So you're wasting a lot of time. And then you go for the first 8 minutes, and then you have the first hurdle that you gotta get past, and there's a big chance that you won't get past it because these random elements will just mess up your manip. And then after the next 12 minutes, which is the world of pride, you go to the world of gluttony, and before the world of gluttony you also have that random element, which is even harder than the world of pride one, and you know, it's difficult. But then if you get past the world of gluttony, you go to sloth, and sloth's okay. Sloth is actually not that terrible. It's like a little long. It feels a little long as you're nearing the end, but it's fine. It's really not as bad as people make it out to be. And then the next worlds are fun, and then the speedrun's fun. So I'd say it's fun above SMT1 GBA. I'm just disappointed with how hard the manip is to do. But I've heard from people being Filthy Blasphemer, fellow SMT1 and SMT speedrunner, who has run the PSX version of If, saying that because that version you can't manip at all, it's actually a lot more fun. And there's a lot more elements that you gotta take into account, so it feels like, a lot more like the SMT1 SFC version. So maybe what I need to do is speedrun that version and see what it's like. Before I even did that, I speedrun another game for some godforsaken reason, which was Another Bible, and for this one I have very little to say. Another Bible is a horrifying game. It is very boring, and the speedrun is just as boring. Nothing about it is appealing. The music is bad, the mechanics are bad, the game is so easy, you're basically just going from one point to the other, you don't have to think about it a lot. You fight a book at the end, and that's it. It's terrible. The world, like, the dungeons are uninspiring, and it's an SRPG for some godforsaken reason. I hate it. Maybe I'll speedrun it again one day, but I hate it. I'll hate myself while doing it. I also speedran Puzzle the Call at the good influence of my friend Sim. It's a good game. It's an okay speedrun. It's a puzzle game, so you know, you're just pushing blocks. But it's pretty fun, and the music's cool. So I'll put it into... Actually, I'll leave it here at okay, because it's definitely an okay. It's an okay game, it's an okay speedrun. Very little I have to say about it. Lost Bible 2. So after all the praise that I gave Lost Bible 1, you're probably thinking what I think of Lost Bible 2. And Lost Bible 2 definitely doesn't have as much of the charm as Lost Bible 1, and I can't quite place why. It has a lot more story, so it might be that. You have to talk to a lot more NPCs, see a lot of more text. Running away isn't quite as satisfying. Recruitments are not as easy because they are no longer set into a fixed table that's just depending on the race of the demon. There's a lot more factors going into it. But in general, it also has some very cool mechanics, like being able to use the eggs that you receive throughout the game as shields that you just keep as your egg shields throughout the entire run. And I do like the boss fights in that game. Can't quite decide if it's harder or easier than Lost Bible 1, but I also didn't give it as much time as I did the first one, so it's a little hard to say. I would say it's a little easier, but it has a cooler world, I think. I like how you get the boat and then you get the arc, and I do like Makai, but it's quite hard to rate it. It's hard to rate it. I think I'll say fun because it's not as satisfying as SMT1, so it's hard for me to put it into very fun, but it's definitely not as painful as either of these. It's just, I don't think it's good enough to be in very fun, so I'm going to put it here above SMTF. So then we have Devil Summoner PSP. Now this game has incredible dungeons, an incredible soundtrack. I feel like the way we bullshit the game is incredible by just using reflex strats and taking off your armor and having the boss fights deal as much damage as possible to themselves. I love the route, and I love the structure of the speedrun. The only bad parts about Devil Summoner are having to talk to demons to escape encounters. So you have to memorize the way that each of the races speak depending on their personalities, because each of the demon types have a certain personality, which will then have them follow a demon negotiation tree. And instead of what you normally do, instead of talking to them to try and get them to join you just talk to them to try and get them to run away. It's your only way of escaping encounters, because regardless of your speed stat, you'll never be able to outrun them. It's just a thing with the game. So that's the one thing that makes it painful. You don't have any demon recruitment, which is very good. You don't have to worry too much about buying items and whatnot. You fuse, but only enough. And I feel like all the strategies are so fun. But my god, like having to talk to demons to have them run away is so frustrating, because a lot can go wrong and there's so much of it. It's perhaps the speedrun that has the highest skill cap that I've done so far, and I have not invested enough time into it to really be good at it. So one day it'll come, that day I'll really dedicate myself to it and try to get a very good time. But it does not help that the last boss fight is also terrible. Like the last boss fight has the 1.5 minute cutscene, then you have to do 3 fights in a row that you need the boss fights to attack you and not use Megadualon. If they use Megadualon, they win, it's over. If they attack you, you win, it's over. It's very fast, you just need the best outcome to happen. So getting a good time in it, very frustrating. But I feel like the fun of it outweighs the frustrating parts, so I'll put it in very fun, below SMT1, because SMT1 wins by just having less RNG as a factor. The Devil Children PSX games, they're both in one box over here, so I'm going to have to rate both of them in one go, which is a bit unfair because Red Book is definitely a better speedrun than Black Book, but I'll rate them both. These games, they're not bad. I feel like they're pretty good games casually, and for speedruns, I like the pacing, and you don't even have to recruit any demons, which is, different from the DemiKids counterparts, where you do have to recruit a lot of demons, so that's a lot less RNG on their parts. But I actually feel like that does not help their case. One of the things that I do not like is how you're going to be riding your partner demon the entire time, because it's the fastest way of travel, and it always plays the same song. There's a specific song for when you're riding your demon partner, and it's horrible. I'm so sick of it. It has some pretty rough RNG on some fights, and the last boss fights can be a little bit challenging. I feel like there's just not much of a spark to them. I thought I was going to run them for a very long time, and then they got boring. It just got a lot more boring. But they have a good pacing, and I do like how you manipulate the casino and then make the most out of that. I'm not sure. I feel like all the things that make them good can also make them a little underwhelming. I think I'll put them in okay. Maybe this is a little bit, strict on my part to put them in okay, because they're really not bad. I wouldn't say they're worse. Would I say they're worse than SMT1 GBA? Would I? Because SMT1 GBA can be so frustrating. Let's rate them in unfairness. So I feel like the way SMTF is unfair is because of how the manip is unreliable. And Lost Bible 2 doesn't really have that much unfairness, which is why it's at the very first of fun. SMT1 GBA is definitely more unfair than PSX. And these games aren't exactly unfair, though you can get a pretty rough pattern on the boss fights, which then fuck you over. So I think what I'll do is I'll put this in fun, and I'll put this in okay. And it's still more fun than Puzzle to Call, and this is the new order. And I think this is fair. I think this is fair. Which SMT1 GBA would never be with the whole Silph fusion. And that's the truth. So DemiKids Light was my most recent speedrun. And I'm moving SMT5 for last for a reason. DemiKids Light, a lot more fun than I expected. I'd say a lot more fun than Red Book and Black Book. I'm not sure if they're harder or not. I feel like DemiKids Light is slightly easier. And surprisingly, I thought I'd hate this, but the recruitment section is actually pretty fun. Like, the fact that the recruitments are based on emojis. I can't get over it. It's so funny. You're just waiting there, choosing a random option and then seeing the emojis come through. It's like gambling. It's like playing slots. That's what it feels like, and I love gambling in video games. And I like the strategies. No, the grinding section definitely brings it down a little. It's a pretty long grinding section that it has near the end. And I still haven't done the last boss fights enough to say if they're very unfair or not. But I think I will put DemiKids Light. This is tough between Lost Bible and DemiKids Light. Which do I hate most? It's hard to recall because it's been so long since I've speedrun Lost Bible 2. Whereas DemiKids Light, I literally did that yesterday. Between the two, DemiKids Light. DemiKids Light's just more fun. So it becomes the first one in the fun rank. SMT5. SMT5 has a lot of good to it and a lot of bad to it. In fact, I should rate it between the different categories. So I feel like the final rating will be the average of all the categories that I've run, which is only 2, so it's not that many. In comparison, SMT1 I've run a lot more categories. But when I was rating it, I was only thinking of Law, which is the main one. And I can't even say which is the main one for SMT5. I've only done one run of normal any %. I've tried to do another one which died, and I've done a bunch of safety runs. Safety is very satisfying. It's a good category. It's a little too simple, you know? You just crush everything. The difficulty is too easy. But it was fun to optimize it. Still try to make it as fast as possible. The first time that me and Sim came up with the route, we thought that was like the fastest it could go. And then it turns out it could go a lot more faster if you could even utilize all the optimizations. Like making sure we have just enough party members and the right party order that we can auto as quickly as possible. You know, try to cut down on recruitments as much as possible, on load screens, everything. So safety was pretty fun to route. Normal any % was also very fun to route, and I was extremely addicted to this game, and I'm sure that when I come back to it I'll get just as addicted, because it's very satisfying to play through. It's very satisfying. But it's just as painful as it is satisfying, because you're mostly relying, and when you look back at it after you haven't run it for a while, all you can think is about how in every area you're going from point A to point B, defeating meat-ummers, hoping that they don't run away on you, hoping that they don't evade your attacks, so they can get a couple levels, because they've changed the damage to be based on your level, so you need to just level up as much as possible to be able to complete the fights and get demons that are high level enough so you actually deal decent damage against the boss fights. And if it wasn't for that, I feel like this game would definitely be here in Enlightening, because I like all the boss fights, and I like the way it's structured in a speedrun setting. But I like it. But because it's all based on your level, stats assignments become complete obsolete. They do basically no difference. Like whatever stat you decide to assign your points into, it doesn't matter. We still haven't come up with the best route. There's still a lot going on. So for now, as it is, I feel like I'll have to put SMT5 in okay, which pains me a lot, because when it came out and before it came out, I was very excited for SMT5. I had great expectations. I thought that this could be a game that I could really dedicate myself into, and I was looking for this game, and I feel like I've been looking for one ever since SMT1, my very first one. And every single game I've tried has had these, I can't say flaws, but these shortcomings, I guess you could say. I'm not sure if that's even a word, but there's always these small details that hold me back from being able to fully dedicate myself into them. And I was hoping that SMT5 would be the game, but it's so long. And worst of all, what makes it long is frustrating stuff like level gaps, and that makes it very unsatisfying to speedrun. Safety, on the other hand, if I can rate them differently, I'd rate safety in very fun. But no, actually I wouldn't rate it very fun, because the problem with very fun is that for it to be very fun, it needs more replayability, and I feel like safety becomes obsolete very fast, but it would be over here. For safety, and safety alone, it would be over here. But because I have to consider both of them, normally 90% has a runtime of 3 times more than safety, I have to put SMT5 in OK. And that's my tier list as of now. For this year, I hope to speedrun Last Battle 3, which I'll come up with a stupid route soon. Unfortunately, I think I'll only run it once in a stupid route, because the game is quite long, so I don't think I can dedicate that much time to routing a proper route for it, but it will get done. White Book, I think, as well, because I've been doing so much DemiKids that I feel like I might as well do White Book, and along with that, Dark Book. I don't feel like I'll ever run a Black Book and Red Book GBC, because I feel like the PSX version is better in all regards. So if I want to run those games, I will just run the PSX version, not MT1. The 3DS games, we'll see. I might be looking into something in regards to that. And if I was going to run any Persona games, it would probably either be Persona 1 PSP, which is an RNG mess that sounds fun to run once or twice, or Persona 2 PSP, Innocent Sin. And I don't know, maybe this will be the year where I'll finally run Synchronicity Prologue. It's like 20 minutes. It's like 20 minutes and I still haven't done it. I was supposed to do it last year and I didn't. And any more games? Oh, Nocturne. I was thinking of doing Nocturne Merciful eventually, because I had so much fun doing SMT5 safety that I thought that Nocturne Merciful could also be fun. Don't see myself running any category other than Merciful for Nocturne this year, but Merciful maybe. So yeah, that was my last 2 years of speedrunning. If I can get any more thoughts out of my head. I'm very thankful to my friends, the friends that I've made through speedrunning. He'll really help me out through tough points in my life. I feel like I'm in a much better place right now, and I feel like I'm very thankful to SMT Speedrunning for that. So shoutouts to my buddies, Sim, who was the first person who had like speedrun these older SMT entries in English, who definitely inspired me, and I feel like most of us who've come after. Radio, who did SMT2 speedruns, who now has kind of fallen out of speedrunning, but who's still a good friend, and whose presence in my streams for when I started streaming really made a huge difference. Huge difference. And shoutouts to Filthy and everyone in his community who's great, and Filthy's great, and I'm really thankful to have met him and all these people that I mentioned. And shoutouts to the rest of the SMT speedrunning community, who are great people, and I'm hoping to speedrun more of these games and get to meet more of the people who speedrun each of them. So yeah, I guess to another year of speedrunning.